irrespective of whether it's the commission that oversees it.
Thank you. No further questions.
Senator Blewett and then Senator Larson.
Commissioner Gallagher. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gallagher, my question for you is with respect to the preemption. Obviously, medical marijuana is already preempted by federal law, yet the Department of Justice has rendered an opinion saying it will not enforce that preemption. And my question to you is deals with the issue of preemption, the other preemption issues you've mentioned, which the DOJ and the federal government hasn't specifically said we are not going to enforce the supremacy clause and preempt state law. Could you explain that a little more to me so I understand this better?
Senator Blewett, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to pass the buck on that question to Public Service Commission Attorney Mr. Paine.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jim Paine, P-A-I-N-E. I'm an attorney with the Montana Public Service Commission. Mr. Chairman, Senator Blewett, what we were focusing on is a lot of activity by the federal government, which took place in the 90s, late 80s, and early in 2000, where they deregulated certain types of motor carrier activity. And in 1995, they precluded states from enacting any law with regard to entry into the field or rate regulation over carriers of property. So this hinges on whether or not, in the eyes of the federal government, this commercial product, cannabis, is considered property. If it is, we do not have the authority to regulate courier service.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow up.
So the PSC doesn't have the authority under federal law to regulate courier services, then presumably no state agency would have the authority to regulate these courier services. Is that your understanding?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Blewett, that is correct. If it is deemed property under federal law, the states are precluded from regulating the transportation of that property.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow up.
Are you aware of any case law in which state law has been preempted around the United States with respect to this particular type of preemption of this particular variety of issue?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Blewett, yes. There is a significant amount of case law. States used to be very active with regard to regulation of motor carriers, entry into the field, and the regulation of rates. The federal government has deregulated a lot of the dry freight hauling, if you will, and a great deal of the passenger hauling, intrastate and interstate. There are a number of cases that address those issues. I know of no cases, however, that have considered whether or not cannabis is considered property in the eyes of the federal government.
I'll follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow up.
And if someone were to sue alleging preemption and successfully challenge this aspect of the law with respect to regulating these courier services, that would simply strike down the regulation of the courier services, not the entire medical marijuana bill as drafted. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Blewett, that I do not know. Whether that is severable and the rest of the bill would stand, I do not know. I would rely on Legislative Services Division for research on that issue.
Mr. Chairman, could I refer that question to Ms. Lane in the event of
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Blewett, you will notice that on page 49, new section 60 is a severability provision indicating the legislature's desire that the provisions of this bill be severable. However, there is no guarantee that a court or the Supreme Court would rely on that, and it would be a determination by the court if the provisions were so interrelated that they could not be severed.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Follow up.
how would a preemption challenge to this statute take place? And if it can be, if this bill can be challenged under federal preemption with respect to the regulation of couriers, why can't it be challenged with respect and struck down with respect to marijuana being a Schedule I drug?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Blewett, I do not know the answer to the last question. With regard to the first question, I would expect that when the Public Service Commission, if this bill passed, and we initiated a rulemaking process, and we attempted to establish rules that issued licenses to couriers, that is where the challenge would likely arise.
One final follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow-up?
So essentially, the courier would challenge the legality of the license issued by the PSC, and they would end up in federal court, and the court would presumably strike it down if it determined that it was preempted by the federal laws you've specified?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Blewett, I'm not sure. A courier may challenge such a rule, or anyone else participating in the rulemaking process. As far as where that challenge would be taken, currently under MAPA, the Administrative Procedure Act, rules are challenged in the State District Court. That does not preclude a possible transfer to federal court.
Senator Larson.